Good day and welcome everyone to the second Power Platform Community Conference webinar in collaboration with our sponsor, DVW Analytics. I'm Ella Fernandez, Head of Connections at BTechly, and today our speaker will walk us through unlocking SAP insights in Power BI. Before we begin, a few housekeeping reminders. Number one, participation in the live Q&A requires webinar registration. So if you're joining us through other channels, please register by scanning the QR code on your screen or by visiting btechly.com. Select today's session and enter your business email address. Once your registration is processed, you'll be granted access to the Q&A chat as it is not going to be live streamed. If you don't have your Power Platform Community Pass yet for October 27th to 29th in Las Vegas, be sure to register today. Just scan the QR code on your screen or visit Power Platform Conf, that is CONF.com. And don't forget to use the code BOGO, that's BOGO, discount code for a buy one, get one free registration. And of course, please like, subscribe, and follow both BTechly and the Power Platform Community Conference. Without further ado, get comfortable and enjoy today's learning experience.
Hello and welcome. My name's Ian James. I'm from DVW Analytics. I work in the commercial team as an account executive here, and one of the voices I'll be talking that you'll hear today, and also my colleague you can see on the screen now as well, Mike Lorusso. Do you want to say hi, Mike?
Hi everyone, pleased to be here. Looking forward to showing you some of the solutions we have for your Power BI and SAP requirements.
That's great. Anyway, so Mike and I both have many years of experience in the SAP world. Some of us too many, not so many for Mike maybe, but lots of years of experience, and indeed have been working for DVW Analytics for many years. And DVW Analytics, basically, our reason for being is to bridge that gap between the world, the complicated world of SAP as it can be, and the other the more modern platforms, if you like, such as Power BI, but also the rest of Fabric, really, so whether it be a Dataverse or out to a Power App, but also other platforms too. So the modern world meeting the SAP world, which can be a struggle, but we make that easy. That's the idea. And we've been doing that for the best part of a decade now. So to save the bandwidth, I'm going to shut myself down. You've seen me now. So I'm going to shut myself down and move on and just show you a few slides. I'll be talking to the slides. There won't be too many of them. I promise you. What we like to do is to give an idea of what we do, but to show you more, to show you demonstrations. So as we said, we connect to multiple platforms here. So absolutely Power BI in the Microsoft space, but also bear in mind that we can connect to other modern platforms like Ultrix 9, Data IQ, etc. You can see more on the screen there. Well, the first slide here, really, just to give you some confidence in what we do, and in that we've over 600 customers globally, 600 organizations trust us to make that connection between their SAP systems. I guess there's not a lot in common. Some have more in common than others, but they're large companies. Obviously, they're running SAP. And they're from very many verticals, but they have the same type of challenges, let's say, that you may see yourself, of getting your hands on the data that you need in a timely fashion in the platform that you need. And we've had lots of success. You can read, one of our happy customers, one of many happy customers, I must say, we real positive feedback of the difference we can make between the old world of SAP and, if you like, and those more modern platforms. building and accelerating processes as we go, and really facilitating that a real change. Now, a little bit of history, I guess, about DVW, just to give you some background. We started really off in using or working with the Alteryx platform, and as quickly moved into NIME and DataRQ. Now, these are data science, data blending platforms, and in these platforms we have native tools, native connectivity to SAP, both to read and to write data back into there. But we saw that very quickly that there was a need for something else, something where the platform needed more flexibility. So what we've done is build our own. We've got our own middleware, if you like, a console, we like to call it, where you can build connectivity, and it's called the Flow tool, and you can build connectivity in the Flow tool that connects into other platforms, and it's a myriad of other platforms. You can see Tableau, Snowflake there, but also Databricks. And obviously what we're going to concentrate on today is the world of Microsoft, Power BI, Fabric, Dataverse, wherever you need that data. When we say we connect to SAP, well, we connect pretty much to anything with SAP on the label. Top left here, we have the ERP systems, the type of system that SAP are famous for, and you'll be, I'm sure, very familiar with those ERP systems like SAP ECC, which still, most companies still run. But we can connect also to all flavors of SAP, whether it be on-premise or in the cloud, and even back to the older, for some of us who remember this, the old R3 systems before ECC. So we can connect to pretty much anything with SAP on the label in the ABAP space. But also, if you think about it, as we go down that left-hand side there, BW on HANA, even SAC, so SAP Analytics Cloud, we can connect to there. In fact, anything on the ABAP stack. So things like CRM, SCM, SRM, no problems at all. And as you can see down the bottom there, the industry solutions too. But not only those ABAP solutions, even the more modern SAP solutions that are maybe in the cloud, such as the Sales Cloud or Marketing Cloud, etc., C4C, by design, we can connect to all of those, and to the acquisitions, if you like, so SuccessFactors, Ariba, and soon Concur as well. So pretty much anything with SAP on the label, we can connect to. Now, the way our customers use our tools has varied and has grown as we've grown, really. So initially, you can tell by our name, we started out with a focus on analytics and getting data so that it could be used to produce dashboards and the like. And that was really our focus. That's where we started out. And you can see at the top there, we use our console, whether it be the Flow tool or another platform, to move data efficiently from SAP through those platforms into maybe a visualization platform like Tableau or Power BI, or maybe a data lake like Snowflake. We soon saw, though, that our customers were using our tools in different ways, and absolutely we can push to all flavors of all flavors of the Fabric environment, such as Dataverse, Power BI, etc. And as time evolved, we, as well as reading data into our platform, into those platforms, we built the functionality to write back from those platforms into SAP. Now, that's in a very controlled way, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But absolutely, we can build maybe an Excel spreadsheet, sit it in SharePoint, and we can use that Excel and push that data into SAP in a controlled way. So maybe we're on the bottom left there, post journal entries. So month end becomes less manual. It's just becomes a part of an automated process. Maybe you want to update master data records or perform goods movements, etc., etc. Any process you can think of that's very manual now, we can make and automate via our platform and using Power BI and Fabric. We've also down the bottom right there, just to mention that hey, we've got quite a building, an ongoing build of projects where we are assisting and accelerating and indeed de-risking SAP migrations, whether they be sort of the classic migration at the moment, which is ECC to S/4HANA. Lots of those going on. We can really accelerate that, and we've got great use cases, great successes in that area, working with some of our partners, but also maybe from SAP to non-SAP or vice versa. Anywhere where data needs to be moved, we can give a real de-risk it by making it much more transparent and much simpler to control and move data across from system to system. Right in the middle of there, you can see AI, and we'll show you a little bit of AI in one of the demos a little later on. Last slide. So now, before we show you that first demo, I'm sure you're desperate to see what it looks like. Just to give you, this is a reassurance slide, okay? The way we connect, and we can talk lots and lots about the way we connect, but this is a key. This slide here shows the 3-level sandwich of SAP, if you like. You have the database layer at the bottom, application layer sitting on top of that, and then where the user interacts at the UI level. We, by absolute paradigm, never ever connect to the database layer. Okay, as old SAPers ourselves, we don't think that's really something that would ever sell, and we don't think we'd sell a single license. As you can see, we sold lots of licenses, and the reason is because we come in at the application layer. Now, the application layer is exactly where maybe the SAP GUI or Analysis for Office and those other standard SAP front-end tools connect into SAP. We connect in exactly the same way. What that means is that you need a user. You need to have credentials, whether it be single sign-on or good old-fashioned username and password, to log on to your SAP system. And you'll need to provide those, and they will be checked, obviously, by your SAP system, just as they would in the SAP GUI. You would then get your authorizations applied, so you can't see or do things that you shouldn't be doing, okay? Whether it be, getting some table data from SAP, or maybe even running a report, a T code. We'll show you that in a second. So you can run a transaction code directly into our tools. But you can't do that unless you have the right authorizations. Finally, we fully respect all the safety belts, all the safety measures that are built into that SAP application layer to protect your SAP system. Quite rightly, this is a fundamental system for your business. We don't want to do any harm, and indeed, the way we connect means that we can do no harm. And we can say hand on heart, 600 customers across the globe, we've never had any incidents, never any problems at all. In fact, if anything, it relieves the pressure on your SAP system because of the efficient way that we extract our data. Okay. So let's see a demo. Enough of me talking. Over to Mike. Let's see a demo. This demo is all about T codes. So how do you run and connect to a transaction code over on the SAP side? Mike, over to you.
Thanks very much, Ian. So as Ian mentioned, what we do in this example is we're going to look at running a T code, a transaction code. So this is for those of you familiar with SAP. A lot of the functionality is enabled by transaction code. So you key in a transaction code, it runs a specific set of screens, a specific set of functionality. So the one I'm going to show you now is to do with general ledger line items. So for example, I might be a financial analyst. I need access to the data from SAP, but I want to use it in Power BI. I want to be able to analyze it, summarize it, use it for a downstream process. So let me show you how easy that is. And we're going to start our journey today in Power BI. So much as I would bring in any other data source, I'm going to come in here, choose Get Data. Now we have built our own connector that will securely access SAP directly from within Power BI. So all I need to do is connect here. It's going to connect to the system through our solution. And I've now got options for either pulling in existing data sets or creating new ones. What I'm going to do here is create a new data set. And at this point, what it will do is bring up a screen, and this gives us access to all these different areas of functionality and multiple systems that Ian mentioned. So We've got a number of different tools. For those of you who are familiar with SAP BW, for example, you know there are lots of BW cubes. We can have hierarchies within there. We can have the transaction codes I mentioned before. Even things like pulling through from SuccessFactors, some of the newer SAP systems, or even pulling through archive material. So in this example, I'm just going to use a transaction code, so a report, and I have the option here to connect to any of my available SAP systems. So this is the one I want in this case. And as Ian mentioned, this is secure and it's only accessing what I should be able to access as a user. So within here, I've got my user ID and password attached to this, so I will only ever be able to pull back the data I'm authorized to see. So I've been able to connect to the system. I'm just going to put in the transaction code for general ledger line items. So at this point, again, it's going to SAP, it's pulling back any variants for these selections. So a variant, for example, is a predefined set of filter criteria, if you like. So if I click one here, for example, I could run this now and it will pull back using those same filter criteria, or I can pull them down and actually modify them here in the screen. So what I might do is say, well, actually, that is the company code I want, but I don't need all of these general ledger accounts. So I can maybe alter my selections here. But what I do want to see before I start pulling lots of data is, what's this actually going to look like for me? So if I click on design and modify it, 300 rows would probably be enough for me to preview the data and see what it's going to look like. So I click next. Now, the inbuilt intelligence in our connectors will take this data, and the beauty of it is it will take what comes out of those standard screens and those standard transactions and use some of the inbuilt intelligence to actually get the data in a format that's really useful to me. As an example, I'm pulling this into Power BI, so I don't really need these subtotal fields because I'm going to be doing my summarizations in Power BI. So you can see it's already ignored these rows automatically for me. Another nice thing is it's identified the header row and it's going to bring this into individual fields. And it's also highlighted these fields, which is actually going to take and add into my data records. So those will appear as additional columns. Now, this is really useful to me, but perhaps I don't need the general ledger account number and also the description. So let me just take that off. I don't need that one. And let's go to a preview now and see what that's going to give me. So as we see here, I've got the data from the table, I've got that general ledger account number and the company code, all in a nice format ready for me to use downstream in Power BI. So I confirm that. Now that we've got the metadata and we know which fields we've got coming out, we have the option here before we go further downstream into Power BI to limit what we need. So for example, I saw on the previous screen, this field wasn't really adding any value to me. So I'm going to take this off. And actually I might decide, well, I don't need the second currency code field. So let's take that one off as well. Now that I've got this, that's pretty much it. So I've chosen my data, I've chosen my fields, and I'm just going to save this now. Excuse the slow typing. Okay, so now I've set up my extract. All I need to do now is come into the data sets and you'll see I can choose it. I get my preview here within Power BI, just like any other data source. And I'm now dropping into the Power Query Editor where I can carry out any other further transformations that I might want to carry out here. I'm happy with this at this point. So close and apply. So it's going to apply my changes, sync the data, and that's it. So it's now actually fetching the data from SAP. So whereas before I was just looking at a preview, a few hundred records, now this could be the full data set. And there you have it. Here's my SAP data available directly within Power BI. That quick, that simple. So what I'd like to show you now is a little step further we've gone with our connector. So in true Blue to Peter style, here's one I prepared earlier. So this is taking that data and then adding some extra fields, adding some extra visualizations on it. So you can see it's taken the company code, it's given me the total amount by company code. And let's just go into the Power Query editor here. What I've got set up in addition is a number of tables as well. So you can see I've got a filter table where I'm specifying one specific company code. I've also got the posting date range, high and low keys, and I've got an account number range as well. So I've got all of these details and I'm combining these into one additional filter table. And the other step here, you can see up here, is individual parameters. So what I've got here, if I look at this particular parameter for company code, I've got a selection of different values that I can choose. And then when I go into my individual tables, I'm then pulling these parameters into those filters. And then to tie it all together, within our actual query, so this is very similar to the queries you saw before, but the additional step we've got here is the ability to apply those filters in the call that we send to SAP. So if I show you what that looks like. So we've got our visualization here. We have all of our individual parameters. And what I can do here is I can say, well, okay, let's change the parameter for company code from 1000 to 3000. Apply my changes. So at this point, what it's doing is it's using the filters I just showed you in those tables, using the parameters, layering those on top of each other, running those through our connector, and actually heading off to SAP and pulling back just that set of data that we need. So it's really nice, neat call that's only bringing back that data rather than having to bring every single company code's worth of data into Power BI and then limit it. We can only fetch the data that we need, limiting the calls to SAP, limiting the data volumes we're using, and there we have it. So we've now got a refreshed data with our new company code and all the related transactions underlying it. So with that, I'll hand you back to Ian, who's going to take you through the next section of the capability. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Mike. No, that's brilliant. It's so cool to see, a T code, a transaction code being run outside of the SAP GUI. I'm sure for many on the call, that's the first time they've ever seen that. It's really cool to see that, but also to be able to control it from the front end. To be able to say from Power BI that this is the data I want, and you're getting live data there from SAP. You're running the T code live as it is and pulling that data, this case, into a dashboard, but it could be anywhere. It could be to a Power App or whatever's needed. So really, really cool functionality. Okay, so let's take it a little step further, a little bit more detail, just a couple of slides, and we'll be back to Mike. Don't worry. A couple of the boring slides. I just like to take you through. Hey, what's the flow tool and what does it do? Well, basically, the flow tool, as I said, is a platform, a data wrangling platform, if you like, from DVW Analytics. Because it's from us, it's very focused on SAP, but it does have connectivity to many other systems and can bring data and combine it with your SAP data too. Real nice functionality, real easy to use for pretty much anybody, but also as well as being something that maybe a business user could use and pick up quite happily. Even an IT heavy lifting use case can be used here. And this slide gives you sort of an overview of all the bits and pieces that sit there, all the functionality. The flow tool there in the middle, it's a sort of a traditional drag and drop tool that's very visual. Each tool within the flow does a different action, whether it be go get some data, as you've just seen, from a transaction code or maybe from a table, combine those, make calculations, pull data from elsewhere, maybe a CSV file, and then push to wherever you need it. And we use this flow, this platform to surface that SAP data in such an easy way, as very similar to what you've just seen into Power BI, but also into other platforms like NIME or Data IQ, Tableau, Databricks, etc. And as well as being on the desktop, so you can do it very locally. You can build these things ad hoc as you need them as a business user, say. Then we have server and cloud solutions that allow you to do this in a more automated, maybe a more enterprise way. Little bit more on the detail. Again, lots of different tools in there. You can see top left that we're very focused. You saw all the different objects, if you like, within SAP that we can connect to. Like T codes, but also tables, IBP, even read documents. So if you've got, I don't know, PDFs of invoices saved within SAP, we can extract those and surface those. We'll show you an example of that a little later. But also long text, things that are hard to get rid of. You can run good old-fashioned queries, used quite a lot still in logistics and ECC, for instance. So lots of different SAP, very SAP-centric. But down bottom left there, you can see that we can connect to everywhere else that you might expect to, whether it be SharePoint, obviously in maybe Dataverse, et cetera, but Databricks or Snowflake, or et cetera, and good old fashioned, he says CSV, Excel, just flat files are fine too. So you can bring all that data input and then use in the center here, a great platform to combine all that data, to cleanse it, to transform it, and prepare it, to pre-bake it, if you like, ready to land in your target systems. I know Mike's going to show you something going into Power BI shortly, but it could be any of the other systems you can see there, anywhere in Fabric and Dataverse for sure. But the idea is that we pre-bake that data, so you don't have to have programming knowledge, deep programming knowledge of what happens on the Microsoft side, even down to Power Query and M code. You don't need that. You can do it all in the visual platform, so that data is ready and lands absolutely ready for use in the platform of your choice. So having said all that, let's see it in action. So over to Mike again. I'm going to show you how we can maybe get some data from a Fiori app and use it and surface it via a data flow from the flow tool into Power BI. Mike,
Thanks
over
very
to you.
much, Ian. Yep. So as Ian mentioned, what we're looking at here, this is a Fiori app. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, so in the move to SAP for HANA, they introduced this new user interface with different what they call Fiori apps, which are small areas of business logic specifically for certain types of users. So the one I'm going to take you through today, this is a supplier invoice list. So it's effectively a search screen that allows me to search through supplier invoices. So this is what you would see if you're an SAP user. And here I've got a search where I'm looking for a particular company code, 1710 and fiscal year 2020, and you'll see this has actually returned 29 invoices. So this is what you would see as an SAP user. Now behind a lot of these, some of them might have BW queries behind them, some of them may even have custom code behind them. This particular one has got an OData source, so that is how it connects back to SAP, pulls back the data and then renders it into the screen. And SAP have got this whole library of all of these different, thousands of their different standard Fiori apps that you can look at. And within each of them, they will tell you, for example, how they're configured, how they're set up. And you can see there's an OData service that sits behind this one. So let's drop now back into Power BI. So Power BI here, what I've done is I've used, in a very similar way to the previous example, I've used our connector to go through and fetch the data from SAP and bring it back in. But what you'll see in addition here is I've got a couple of extra columns that aren't on that Fiori screen. And in particular here, we've got, as well as the company code number, we've got the country, the base currency for that company code, and the description for that. And the way we actually connect to that, if I come into the query and let's just have a little look at this. So again, you'll be familiar with this. We come through, we've got our data. And what we're going to do here, if we look at the recent data sources, I'm going to come through and I can see all of my individual data sources, and this one's pulling from this particular flow. Now, this is a step on from what we saw in the first example. So as Ian mentioned, we've now got multiple different tools within here built into our console, where we can pull data from lots of different areas. So you already saw the example where I was pulling table data or transaction code data. And what I can do then is pull all of these different pieces of data together. So for example, I've got my data, I can join it, manipulate it, and these are all drag and drop tools. And the other nice thing within this is we can, of course, document it directly within here. If you've got a memory like mine, you know you'll need this for your, keep your future self happy and explain what you did, why you did, and where you fetched the information from. And that's exactly what we have here. So it might be a link to the particular screen we may use. And again, this can connect directly to SAP and pull back that data. So for example, here, this is that OData service we saw previously. So this is fetching the data as it exists the same way SAP would fetch it before they render it in the screen. So you can see I've got my same selection criteria. If I look down here, I've got my same set of 29 records. But what we can then do is we can take that and enhance that with further data. So you see with these next couple of tools, what I'm doing here is linking it to the unique set of company codes, and then in the same flow going to SAP, and this is the table that has the company code master data, and this is where I'm getting that additional data I showed you, the text for the company code, the country and the currency, join them all together and send them back out to SAP. But we can also do much more with this as well. So rather than just bringing back those single filters of one company code and one year, we might want to link this to an upstream flow, for example, or a Power App, or something will generate us a list of multiple entries that we may want to bring across. So what I've got here is a range of combinations of company codes and fiscal years. All I need to do is connect this, and this effectively then provides a dynamic query. If I save this now, let's drop back into Power BI. Let me just close that. And now I can refresh my query from within Power BI. And again, it makes that call, goes and fetches the dynamic data. And you can now see I've got the multiple company codes all there in that same data source. So again, what we've shown is the ability to take that Fiori app, use that functionality available from SAP, and extend it with dynamic functionality to bring it right where you need it into Power BI. And with that, I shall hand back to Ian to take you through to the next stage.
Thanks, Mike. That's superb, isn't it? So because that's now taking that the idea from the first demo there, where you have a single object, if you like, that T code. So we're just going to get data from a single T code. Whatever comes out of the T code, we'll take it and bring it into Power BI and then use it there. This takes us a step further. It gives you much more flexibility because we can pull data from, as you saw there, from a Fiori app. And by the way, it doesn't matter where that Fiori app is sitting, where the data comes from, whether it be OData or a T code maybe, or maybe a HANA view, even a BW report. There's a BW system sitting in your S4HANA system. SAP never throw anything away. It's always buried in there somewhere. So there's lots of different sources. Whatever that source is for the Fiori app, we can connect to it at DVW. But that takes us then and says, hey, we don't just need one single source. We can now connect it to other sources from SAP, indeed other sources from elsewhere, and build a bigger model, a more complete model that can be surfaced over in Power BI. So yeah, a really nice example. Thanks, Mike. That's brilliant. So let's take you again another couple of slides, and then we'll be back to the cool stuff. Basically, these are very, very busy slides, but I just wanted to give you an idea of the breadth of functionality that we provide to Power BI and indeed to the rest of the Microsoft environment, so the whole of Fabric really. the different objects here that we can read data from. I've mentioned some of them there, and I want to pick them out again. Look, so top two there are probably the biggest ones that our customers use, and you probably know for obvious reasons. Tables, getting down to that granular level where we can see absolutely every detail of what's held within SAP. Now, remember, that's not going to the database layer; it's going to that table via a safe route, if you like, via the application layer. But we get that full detail, and we find, maybe our finance, our audit, tax, and you name it. Love that detail. Love to get, if you're that sort of business analyst or that sort of individual within the company that needs the detail, this is the way to get it. Alternatively, if you like, on the other hand, if you're a business user, then you run T codes, and we've seen already how our tool can run T codes directly into the tool, exactly as you would see the data that you would see in SAP in the GUI, you will see over in Power BI. Fantastic. It's one for one. It's very familiar data, then easy to use, and you can build in all that functionality you've just seen on the Flow tool. We talked about Fiori apps. Let's go down a few. I mentioned attachments, but this is really important. Again, we'll show you an example of this. Great for, if you've got to pull out, I don't know, some invoices. If you're an auditor, imagine you're an auditor, you've got to pull out 100 invoices and do some checking. This is a really manual effort. Hey, is got to go into maybe into each supplier invoice, go find the attachment, download it, and then go into the next 99. If there's an attachment there, of course. Our tool allows you to pull all of those in one batch. You can pull all 100 out, provided there, of course. So it's a massive accelerator, really useful tool. Going through, down further down, it's worth noting all the BW is still around. It's maybe having it's later years, maybe it's starting to disappear. But as I mentioned before, it still exists in S/4HANA. We can connect to pretty much any object in SAP. So whether it be query view, hierarchies, cubes, multi-providers, even the info objects, the master data we can connect to there. So lots of possibilities there. And then in the slightly more modern world, HANA views, OData, and even IBP, integrated business planning. So all of that we can connect into. So pretty much, any use case you can think of, we can cover off in terms of reading from SAP. Just to give you a little overview, hey, can we do, some of the questions we get asked really, hey, can you schedule these? Yeah, absolutely. You can schedule loads. Look, you can do that either using the Power BI gateway, which is more of a pull mode, if you like. It pulls data, or maybe you want to push data, and our server version of the Flow tool platform there can push data on a schedule, say into a Dataverse if you need it. So, hey, run this T code every morning at whenever, it will push that data across and do that work. Is single sign-on okay? I did mention it before for those who are listening, but yeah, absolutely, you can use single sign-on. It's not just username and password. So if in your organization you use single sign-on, that's not an issue. Delta loads, absolutely, with the ways of attacking those many different ways. It actually gives me a chance to just mention our support team. When you buy licenses from us, hey, that doesn't come just with the software. It comes with real backup from SAP experts. Our support team are happy to come in, absolutely get you connected, get you running, give you a 101, if you like, of the tools and how they work, but also be there for you. If you've got a question, if you've got a use case, they're more than happy to recommend best practice and the best way to use our tools to solve the problem. And then the last one we mentioned, down the bottom there, I've already mentioned, look, hey, this is a absolute safe tool, okay? We can do no harm. It's been built that way. It's been built with full governance controls, and we fully respect those authorizations and safety belts. Final bit, and this leads me into what Mike's going to show you in a second, is just to come back to that write capability. We talked a lot about read so far, but it is possible to push data from our platform and other platforms into SAP. So we can close the loop, if you like. We can do the full process. Not only can we pull data from SAP, manipulate it, look at it, and build analyses of that, but we can take that data and construct inputs that will adjust, post, do whatever's necessary over on the SAP side in order to make the correct, maybe, I don't know, corrective postings for month end, maybe updates to master data, etc., etc. The way we do that, primarily at the top two there, you can see, which is BAPI and IDOC. These are, in fact, all of these are very standard methodologies in terms of pushing data into SAP, writing to SAP. Very standard, very safe, secure as ever, as everything we do is. But we can also write to SAC. This is the Analytics Cloud. For SAP, we can write to the more modern systems using OData. In a minute, Mike's going to show you how to use RPA. So this is our little robots that can actually copy. This is at a higher level. Actually, it's the GUI level that can actually run exactly what you do on the SAP GUI and run it automatically as a little robot. But also, as you might imagine, we can write to BW. We can write to all sorts of hierarchies. Maybe you've got in your mind a use case about updating profit centers, etc., etc. Okay, so all of this can be done, and Mike's going to show you right now just one of those, the RPA tool, and how it can write some pricing, I believe, back into SAP. Over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Ian. Yes, that's right. So what we're going to do in this example is we're going to close that loop. So this is what we find is quite a common use case with SAP customers. So they may be performing price analysis and they want to update their pricing for the coming year. So they may use a number of different analytical tools to run through, compare their costs, for example, their predicted cost, their predicted sales, and actually generate some prices. Once those have been through their approval processes, you've then got that issue of how do you get that data back into SAP? And that's where we close the loop. An example I'm going to show you. So here I'm going to show you an example where we've got our prices, they're approved, they're now sat in SharePoint, ready for us to use. So what I can show you here is that robot example that Ian mentioned. So this is our RPA tool. Behind the scenes, it uses SAP scripting. For those of you who are familiar with it, basically allows you to run through a process exactly as you would do it on screen in the SAP GUI if you're keying in prices manually, but it allows you to record that and then play that back. And one of the nice things we've got in here is the ability to run it through loops. So you can see here it's running through a loop, and then it's actually linking through the data. And what this is doing is this taking some initial data I've got, which is at high level, is just saying bring through the sales organization and distribution channel, the key things. And then what it's going to do is pull in that SharePoint file, read it directly into the flow from SharePoint, and then it's going to map the fields from those rows into the RPA tool, loop through. Anyway, enough of me talking. Let me show you it in action. So I'm running the flow. You'll see it's automatically logging into SAP. And what it's going to do now is log on again with the credentials stored within here. So again, it's using my authorizations, logging on, going through the screens. You saw earlier, I can't type this quickly. This is definitely not me.
It's definitely not you, Mike. I can tell you that.
There'd be far more typos in it, wouldn't there? But yeah, so this is it. It's actually running through exactly as you would do, saving, and that's it done. So all of your prices are now updated, and there we go. So with that, I will hand back to Ian, who can now talk to you about going beyond what I've shown here, where I've triggered some of these manually, and talk through some of the options for running these on schedules, for example. Over to you, Ian.
Thanks, Mike. That's brilliant. That's so cool, that demo. Love it. So let's quickly go through then. So the next few slides are just about, hey, what about the flow tool and specifically Fabric? Well, the good news is we can connect to all the universe, if you like, of Microsoft in terms of you've seen Power BI, but also we can connect to the Power BI service into Power Queries, Power Automate, Power Apps, whatever it may be on that side in the Power Platform. Not easy to say, but to also to dataverses, so we can write data maybe on a schedule across into a dataverse. Equally, on a schedule, we can do exactly what Mike has just shown you, and maybe do some RPA. So maybe those postings are generated overnight by some process. They can be picked up automatically on a schedule from wherever they're sitting, maybe in Dataverse, maybe elsewhere, and pulled through, and then those postings made automatically without the need for human hands at all, because the server version can then schedule those to work. In terms of just a little picture to keep maybe the IT bods around you happy. This is just an overview of how the flow tools work. You can see the platform there, the console, the flow tool console sitting in the middle there. It's either desktop or server version. We connect back to SAP. That's what the reason for the flow tool being there is. It's to make those connections, to control what happens with those communications with SAP and all those objects we've talked about, but then to push that data across into maybe Power BI. If you prefer, you could read that Dataverse or Fabric or whatever you like on the right hand side there. We've used Power BI here. You've seen the little add-on. You can see just on the side there in the light blue, DVW PQCS, so Power Query Connector for SAP. That's that little piece that sits on the Power BI side, that allows you to see and communicate with the platform seamlessly. So whether that be as a drop-down list, and you can see all those flows and all those connections that you've created, and then use those data sources in Power BI directly, or maybe in Power Query to use some M code that embeds those calls within your Power Query. So lots of flexibility there, lots of ways of connecting to your data. Just to step back and start from the most basic. Hey, it doesn't have to be even at the Power BI level. It could be even closer, even lower down, if you like, in the pyramid. We can connect to Excel. We can connect directly into Excel and make calls from Excel into an Excel spreadsheet back into those data sources. So it could be back exactly in the same way back to just SAP, but also to a flow. So it could do all that work, say, with the Fiori app or connecting other data sources, and bring that pre-baked data across into Excel. So if you've got an Excel use case that you want to automate rather than having to download and press all the buttons and spend all the time tidying, then we can create flows in our flow tool platform that are consistent and repeatable. You build them once and then use again and again. And as you've seen, really flexible of what you can do there. And then obviously from there, you can expand out. Same picture really on the left-hand side. Hey, it's any data source together with pretty much anywhere in SAP. The flow tool can combine and prepare that data and then push across, maybe to the Dataverse, maybe to a Power BI server, depending on your service, should I say, depend on your setup, and then that can be consumed across Fabric, so Power Platform, Power Apps, etc., etc. So real flexibility there. And as I said, hey, our support team, as well as being well versed in SAP, can really help you to look at your use cases, look how you want to use it on the Microsoft side too. At this stage, I want to show you something special, something a bit different. So I'm going to quickly pass across to Mike and just show you the final demo before we close. So over to you, Mike. A bit of
Thanks
AI,
very much, Ian. Thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do here is just show you bringing together some of the pieces we've been through earlier, but show you how it can then link into a couple of our favorite tools. So we've got one where we use AI to read through PDF documents, extract the relevant information, and then combine that with data from our financial postings, but also a really nice reconciliation tool that compares multiple data streams and reports out the differences before passing it downstream. Now, this is a great use case for being able to automatically compare data, report any discrepancies really early on. So you're not waiting until much later down the line where they could have caused issues or mismatches in your data. So let me explain what we're looking at here. So in this example, what we want to do is we want to pull the transaction postings related to supplier invoices and actually check that what was posted into SAP matches the PDF of the invoice that we received from the supplier. So it's going to go field by field automatically, compare them, and then indicate whether there are any discrepancies that we need to resolve. So starting over on the left-hand side here, we've got, in this example, I've just given a set of 3 invoices here, 3 supplier invoices. This could be 3,000. This could be run on daily schedule, for example, so we could run it every night to check that day's postings. The first thing we're going to do is, using our table tool, we go off and we fetch some of the specific data posted into SAP related to those supplier invoices. If I take you through this bottom section here, financial postings, we're then going to the underlying tables and we're saying, okay, for these documents, fetch the underlying information, bring back things like the payment terms, bring back the amounts, join those back together, and then let's pull in some additional information for validation. What we might want to do here is actually let's look at the supplier address details, because what we want to do is we want to ensure that what's posted into SAP for that supplier actually matches what was on the invoice. That could have many applications, for example, in fraud analysis or prevention, or just about error checking. So that's the financial posting side. In parallel, what's happening in this flow is it's actually taking these invoice details and going into SAP, identifying the documents and the attachments to them, and then it's reading with those details, actually reading the documents out from the SAP system, pulling those documents out and storing them as the PDF document. So I've then got the record of the PDF document received from the supplier and also the financial postings. That's where it then drops into our Invoice Radar AI, which takes that data. And if we look at some of the invoices, so what it's doing is, if I've got an example here, it's actually able to go through and parse all the pieces of information out of these documents. And I've got a couple of examples here, but it could be multiple different formats of PDF or invoice document. It's then coming through and splitting this into the different streams. So you can see it's pulled out all of the address data. It's got the header data from these documents with things like payment terms. It's identified from the document and all the line items. Next step we go through in this flow is it's actually automatically pulling through some of these fields and formatting them using our date time tool into the date format that I want to use. And going back to our financial postings, enhancing that with a little bit more data. So here, for example, I don't just want the payment terms code that is stored in the transaction SAP. I actually want the text description of those payment terms, join them all together. And here's where we get to our reconciliation tool. So what this will do is, field by field, it will go through and show me any discrepancies between the 2 different streams. So if you remember, I've got my documents coming through from the PDF compared to my financial postings. So invoice date, for example, there's a mismatch between the document and what's posted into SAP. And also for that first supplier invoice, there's also a discrepancy on the payment terms between what was in the document. So you might notice here actually that I started off with 3 financial postings, but I've only actually got 2 documents here. And the other thing this is reporting is actually there is a missing record from that third financial posting, doesn't have a PDF attachment with it. So the other nice thing about this flow is rather than just doing what we're doing here, which is reporting out and creating a file, our flow tool also gives us the facility to generate emails. So this example here, I'm actually sending the results of this workflow out automatically as an email with an attachment in it. So if I then go over to Outlook, you can see here's my mail. So now as the data owner, I know automatically here are today's financial postings that need to be corrected. So I think that's quite a nice example that pulls together a lot of the different threads that we've looked at and shows how we can build them through into one automated flow. So what I'll do is I'll hand you back to Ian now while I go off and fix my financial postings.
Yeah, it's a brilliant flow that we've certainly at least one use case where one customer saw this particular flow and bought the tool just off the back of that particular flow because it was going to be so useful, and that indeed they saved their ROI was massive just off that one workflow. So yeah, really cool piece of functionality there. I love the reconciliation tool because it gives you the details, and line by line and field by field it gives you the differences. But let's call out the AI agents there. Hey, we build and our focus is to build tools that use AI, but that we know where there's an actual use case and where it actually works. So this is, we like to call it RI, real intelligence rather than AI. It actually works. It gives and fills a gap that is going to be useful. And by the way, those AI tools are very flexible. They're really plug and play. You feed a document into that tool, and it will go off and strip off the various values in there. And it can use any LLM, by the way, just rest assured. So if you want to use an internal LLM rather than obviously one in the cloud, you don't want to share your data with the world, then that's perfectly okay as well. That's perfectly possible. Anyway, that's us. Well, so firstly say thank you for joining us. Thanks for your attention. If hopefully we've inspired you. You want to visit us and see more. If you do, then come to dvwanalytics.com or contact us at acs_sales@dvwsolutions.com. And for making it to the end, thank you very much for your attention and for staying awake. And what we'd like to offer you, hey, look, if you like what you see, kick the tires, give it a go. We really encourage you to try it. We'll give you a full version of the software with full support, and we'll double the trial period at the moment. So if you're on the call, please scan the QR code, sign up for trial, and we'll give you a 60-day trial with all that support, with all that background, and make sure you have success and find the best from both worlds. The best from the software, but making real ROI on your investment. Thanks again for your time. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ian and Mike, for that outstanding demo. To everyone watching on the live stream, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be wrapping up the stream shortly. Be sure to secure your spot at the Power Platform Community Conference happening on October 27 to 29 in Las Vegas. You can register by scanning the QR code on your screen or by visiting powerplatformconf.com. Don't forget to use the discount code BOGO, BOGO, for a buy one get one free pass. If you'd like to participate in a live Q&A with Mike and Ian, please make sure that you join us, provided the link on your calendar invite. Goodbye.